The Lord be with you. I invite you to stand for the proclamation of the gospel as you are able. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew, the 5th chapter. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. Then he began to speak and taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Please be seated. I invite you to direct your eyes to the screen. Sir Nicholas is a saint. What he did was truly incredible, extraordinary. For him to save 669 children from certain death, to rescue them from Czechoslovakia, to place them in homes in Great Britain with people he believed would care for them, truly extraordinary. And yet, when Sir Nicholas was interviewed, his response was, "I just did what was before me. I just did what I could in a terrible situation." He is the definition of a saint, but he's not the kind of saint that we oftentimes think of when we think about all saints or people who are named saints, people who do extraordinary things. That's not the point. What he shows us is that actually saints are people who do extraordinary things in an ordinary, incredible way. He reminds us of what you and I are called to as saints in the Lord, baptized into the power of a Spirit that changes the world, that flips the world upside down. It's really what our readings are about today. That's what this feast day is about. It reminds us that the world is flipped upside down, that we are, in fact, in communion with all of those who have ever existed and all those who will come. The Native American people talk about 7 generations past, 7 generations forward. We're always in connection with more than we can know in our mind and in our bodies. And our readings today reflect this for us as well. That first reading from John, he's a visionary. He's having a vision of his relationship with God and what God intends. And he's looking up at the night sky, at the brilliance of the stars. And he imagined those stars as all of the people who have ever existed before him. But in his experience, that sky, that night sky, comes down very close to him and enshrouds him in a sense of being surrounded by the very presence and life of God. And he says to the people that he later shares his vision with is, look, I know your lives are filled with division right now. I know there are people who are telling you you're stupid, you're crazy for following this Jesus the Christ that we claim to follow. They're leaving our communities because they can't say yes to what we're saying, to following one who gave his life away. I know people are saying that to you. Let it go. What we know is that we are children of God today. And what we will be or what we will become is not our concern today. What we are invited to focus on are the people around us that we are called to love and the world that we can affect and change today. The night sky is filled with that sense of wonder. Have you seen any of the photos that are coming back from the Hubble telescope right now? They've been in the news and on the internet recently. The Hubble telescope is sending back images. Scientists are blown away at the vastness of the creation in which we are a part of. That we are somehow in connection with vastly more than we can ever imagine. That is the life of God that you are invited to be a part of, that I am invited to be a part of. And we have this wonderful image today that reminds us how connected we actually are. This isn't just some kind of a dreamy vision. This is the reality that you and I live in as baptized saints. God's world is not separate from our world. God's world is intertwined in our world. And the image, what holds in that place of connection, of that overlap, is the cross, is the person of Jesus incarnated, who shows us as he hung on that cross how connected we are, in fact. Heaven and earth joined in this one act of love, of sacrifice, reaching out, connected to all who have ever been and all who will ever be, and connected to that which is beyond and that which is below, created, suspended there, holding in tension that connection, that crossroads of heaven and earth. That is the life that Jesus invited us into. And that image of the cross reminds us that if we turn the cross on its axis, like most things, we spin it, what happens is it starts to throw off energy. And it starts to bounce off stuff wildly. And when a saint is acting in the power of the cross, we are spun oftentimes wildly into creation, bouncing off of people and situations, changing them forever through the love and the power and the passion of God who calls us into that relationship. We are called to be change makers and transformers as saints. Any of you want to stand up and twirl with me for a little bit? No, because most of us would fall down, right? So, but that's the kind of energy that God calls us into as saints. If we look at these people who do extraordinary things in ordinary, incredible ways, They do that. They have this spin with some kind of energy that seems to be beyond them. And we're drawn to that. And sometimes it intersects with us and bounces off us and changes us. And we're invited into that kind of freedom in our own lives to respond as instruments of God's changing, healing, loving power. We are called to flip the world on its head. You know, we have this beautiful image of this in the gospel today, because that's exactly what Jesus is doing. Jesus climbs up this mountain. They call it a mountain. It's more like the hill as you head south out of Anamosa, okay, on 151. Like that kind of a hill, just on the north side of the Sea of Galilee. And Jesus climbs about halfway up it, and he sits down on a stone. And who gathers around him? The Sea of Galilee spread out in front of him. He's got fishermen and farmers and stonemasons and sowers and potters and people who work clay and the earth. And he's got people who are herdsmen. These are the folks who have spent their whole life hearing from the leaders in Jerusalem that they are not in God's favor, that they are perhaps out of God's mind altogether. That the leaders in Jerusalem are saying, you don't do it well enough. You're not good enough. You don't keep the law well enough. All we have are lots of questions about you. I mean, you're welcome to come and hang around with us some more because we're pretty cool. We've got it all together. I mean, look at us, how well-dressed we are, and we wear our phylacteries, and we pray in the morning and the evening. I mean, we're holy. Hang with us. You'll be okay with God. And these folks who don't work in the temple, don't live in Jerusalem, are saying, how do we do that? Where's our dignity in God? I mean, that's not my life. And so they spent their lives with this message, I'm not good enough. Day after day, they're working their hands to the bones to try to feed their families, to make a go of it. And the people in Jerusalem look at them and say, you know, if God loved you, you'd have a much better life. But look at you, you're miserable. Your clothes are ragged. You can hardly feed your family. Are you telling me God loves you? And over time, these people are beaten down and degraded and doubtful. And they wonder, what can I ever do to be enough? And Jesus gathers them on the hillside that day. They're gathered at his feet around him, and he looks at them. He looks at them in their eyes, and he says, I'm not up on a pulpit preaching at you. I'm sitting in your kitchen with you. I'm sitting right here with you today telling you, I know your sorrow. I know your efforts to be good parents, to be good teachers, to be good peacemakers. I know your efforts. I know your sense of loss. And guess what? They're wrong. You're the ones most honored. You know, they spend all their time trying to protect their places of honor at the table and in the temple. But they're living a lie. You're the ones who are most honored by God. You're the ones closest to God's heart when you are simple, when you stay close to the earth, when you don't seek more than you need, when you don't take advantage of other people, when you are trying to reconcile in your families. You are living close to the heart of God. You are most honored. You are blessed. And you know, I know right now that doesn't make your hardships go away. That doesn't make your sorrow go away. But the reason why you are blessed, my friends, is because you see the long picture. You know that God is faithful. You believe that God will, in fact, comfort you and fill you and give you a sense of that kingdom that God desires, where love and compassion and wholeness reign. You are the most honored, especially when people put you down because you follow me, Jesus says. you see it? Do you feel the invitation to accept being honored by God? You know, on Tuesday, I couldn't figure out how to pray about the situation in New York. You know, they're running the marathon right now. And there's scads of police and military, and people are living in fear. And on Tuesday, I couldn't take it anymore. I said, God, how am I supposed to pray about this again? Another senseless act of violence. When are you going to change the world? When are you going to make this stop, God? But I found that even in my frustration and my sense of emptiness that day, my confusion, my anger, I felt my prayer changing as the day went on. And I stopped saying, God, change that situation. And I started to pray, God, don't let the world change me. Don't let that situation change my heart. Don't let fear take over, God. Because saints don't live in fear. Saints live in the confidence of the power of God, of the promise of God for fullness and comfort and strength. And it's found here in this communion. And it's found in this communion and in this communion and in the energy that you and I throw out into the world today. That positive, healing, compassionate love makes a difference. And when you go out of this place and you interact with people in a positive way, it makes a difference. It changes the world. You might not be able to see it immediately, but it makes a difference. You and I, called to be saints today, children of God, empowered in Holy Spirit's passion. Can you see it? Can you imagine it? Because if you can imagine it, you can live it.